if you're depending on that type of nationalistic outlook. Coming to the quality issues, and I think, the quality issue is very simple. Just do wonderful clinical trial. Clinical trial is an important aspect of it in our vaccine field. And we have done an efficacy trial and published in Lancet, published in actually 8 articles in Lancet, 2 New England Journal of Medicine, 2 Nature, not 2, 3 Nature, all that published. And I think we have more publications than other companies, other global companies. I think if you establish that credibility, today I'm at least happy to say when our vaccine is in more demand compared to other vaccines in the field. So we could not supply enough quantity, but we had more demand. That means Indians started accepting a good science. Although media was making some stories out of that we are not bothered, but certainly the people, common people, started accepting a good clinical research, good clinical trial, a good thing, and they have accepted.
So, what would you say? I'm in Africa is constrained.
No, we had a problem of, again, a nationalistic outlook. So we had India become an important country to vaccinate first. That became a little nationalistic. Yes, I agree. But we couldn't supply a lot of other countries. That got little brand image, little bit hurt for us. But I think we are regaining back those things by supplying other children's vaccine. We are even diverting some of the childhood vaccines. Instead of India, we are supplying to Africa. For example, Nigeria introduced rotavirus.
The cost. We have bought diagnostic kit for 3,000 rupees per test. And today the production cost is 60 rupees. How much difference it is? And I remember when during the pandemic in its peaks, we order a kit and 3-4 will come in Delhi, some goes Chandigarh, some goes here, and we don't get the kit. So I meant that for certain basic things, we should have indigenous capacity to produce those things. And it is not that we as a country, we should be very proud of. We should be proud of everything, all the way from Italy to our vaccine, everything we should be proud of. So it was not for that. The other thing I wanted to just to complete by saying that, of course, the quality has to be there, and that is the responsibility of the private sector, which is generally the maker of all these things. But the responsibility of the government is twofold. One is the regulatory process, and we should add a disease. Dr. Krishnalal said 1 year you don't get decision. Somebody should pay for it. Somebody should calculate what it has costed for not taking a decision on this. This should be built in our system. I'm not worried about raising the bar, but I'm worried about decision. It should be given with the proper justification. That's the decision. And if you make the regulatory process productive and smooth, then I think there will be more and more funding available for this research. In fact, we should not depend so much on government funding, because where research is being done, it will lead to product, it will lead to information which will have value. So there will be investors that we can attract, or there can be philanthropy, lots of things one can arrange. But many things get stuck because of the regulatory thing. I can tell very simple example that if you want to do sewage surveillance, go and ask for sewage sample. Most of the time you will be disappointed because they will not give permission. Somebody should be held responsible.
So, Dr. Ella, I think you answered, in a fairly gentle way. Of course, we're not sitting in Africa, and people there are pretty upset that they didn't get vaccines. It might have been a small problem for us, but I think there was an issue. But to ask you, press on that question, because in fact, Sindhur and I were just in Brussels, where there's a lot of talk of local manufacturing in Africa. So, can you think of ways in which we can structure this or maybe there's a question for you, Sindhura, which is you have credible global mechanisms for being able to address pandemics in a way that doesn't fall prey to this kind of thing, where there's a penalty to be paid for this kind of vaccine nationalism. I think we can only fix it through that sort of a mechanism, not by having a vaccine manufacturing unit in every country in the world, which I don't think that makes sense.
Raman, see, Africa wants to be self-sufficient. You need a human resources. That is also a highly challenging field. And Africa is not one country. each country politically different. One country manufactures, other country will not buy. It's going to have a lot of other problems. And I think, people are offering the mRNA vaccine and all platform technology free to Africa. Nothing will substitute. The reason is very simple. Childhood vaccines. Childhood vaccines. You can't make every mRNA, 10 mRNAs injected into the baby. And it's not going to happen. If it happens, we don't know what will happen, the safety of the child going to be next 5 years, 10 years. So I think, so we are watching all these things. But the scale of operation and the cost efficiency in a vaccine field are most critical. Okay? And I think India is still better positioned in that compared to even China. I think, in terms of vaccine innovation, vaccine scaling up capability, India is far better than any other country. One thing we lost out because of the logistics support that we need reagents. Some of the QC reagent and other reagent, nothing was available to us when we were start manufacturing. We need a monoclonal antibody, nothing was available. And this is where even public institutes have let down us. Even public institutes should have done immediately made a peptide of that sequence, made an antibody available to the industry. That was also not happened. I think we missed. But I think the future, I don't think India can handle better. I think India can handle better. I think we are well geared up in a lot of mRNA, other platform technology, fungi, and cell culture, tissue culture, all the platform 4, 5 important platform. I think India is well positioned, and I think human resource is great in the country. And I think we'll help the Africa on African disease. For example, NTS, we are doing non-typhoidal salmonella, which is an African disease. We completed phase 1 in US right now. Now the Gates Foundation and Wellcome Trust funding us to phase 2, 3 in Africa. That is very specific to Africa. Cholera we are making, phase 3 completed. Again, African specific. We want to help the African country. It's not that we want to exploit the market. So I think we are changing the game plan differently to help the Africa also in a different direction. And I think it will happen, but I think this nationalistic outlook of everybody getting independent will not survive long. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if others have questions, but just to, it's a very loaded question. Oftentimes these things are more acute when things are in so demand and what is needed is in such short supply. And one thing that would help is being better prepared, especially on the manufacturing capability platforms. We are a little bit prepared. Now we don't have problem with supply. Now we are not fighting because there is enough supply.
Excess supply now.
Yeah, now it's the excess. So, and obviously we will not have access for any disease that will suddenly that surprises us. There is always going to be a period, but we, instead of starting here and trying to go here, we will hopefully start here, and we will have learned the lessons of putting certain key bottlenecks in perspective and prepare for that.
Just want to make one statement. We have talked about wildlife and animal and all that. We missed important is a plant. The entire European migration happened to US because of potato famine and corn blight in US. The corn was shortage in the 70s. Because of 1968, they launched a male sterile corn, and the entire crop was destroyed, gone. And there is no corn at all in the entire US. They had to recoup back in 3 years. It took for them to recoup. And potato famine, migrations happened because to US. So let's not forget.
Principles are exactly the same actually. So there was a question.
Hello, I am Anupam. I have two deliberations. One is on the darker side that we had the nationalistic vaccine supply and material challenges. What is the global perspective around this? Are there any attempts made to make this globally available? If there is a next pandemic coming, do we have any strategies in place, not as nation, but as globe? Second, on the brighter side, during pandemic, we also saw that